Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Dylan. I love reading books. I love reading about wizards, and I so often space out whilst reading because I have no attention span, and that's why I started reading. But one thing that can help me stay focused and pay more attention to my books is characters that I can connect with and thoroughly enjoy. And that's what we're here to talk about today. My favorite characters in fantasy, the ones whose POV chapters I love to read, the ones who elevate the books, the ones who elevate the story. Got my top 10. I wasn't able to keep this list very contained. Someone asked me to list out my top 10 characters. I got a little carried away. So I've got 13 different series that we've got a top 10 list from and 3 special mentions. Then of that list of 13 series with characters I really love, I've selected between 1 and 3 characters from each of those series. I've done my best to just mention as few as possible, so I will be leaving some out, but there's just a few that I couldn't cut them down to just one person per series. It was too much of a challenge to do that. So the first honourable mention we have is Samwise Gamgee from The Lord of the Rings. Would you want any other person or being in fantasy to be your friend more than Samwise? And the answer is no. He's the ultimate friend, and that's why he is my favorite Lord of the Rings character. And the next honorable mentions, we have Varg and Orca from the Bloodsworn saga. So Varg, just a slave on his way to becoming part of a Viking warband in a massive epic fantasy world. Just super cool, fun story where he's doesn't know a lot of things, so he's constantly learning and making mistakes, and you relate to Varg a lot. And one thing you'll notice with this list, there's a lot of male characters around my age that I just connect to, and that's why they become my favorites. So the list may seem like a lot of similar characters. But Orca, also from this book, just a mother on a mission. No one's getting in her way. She used to lead a Viking warband, and she's still got the ability to just go ballistic, absolute berserker, and just tear down people with her battle axe. So cool, and just a woman on a mission. Next, I wanted to mention the characters of The Bound and the Broken. We'll talk about Kaelin, just the main character. He plays the same role that Aragorn does in the Inheritance Cycle, just hero's journey, discovers a dragon egg, and is just a good dude that wants to help people and is thrown into a role with such a high responsibility. It's really interesting to see how he grows. His sister and his 2 friends are 2 more fantastic characters also in this series. And there's so many side characters that are all done so well. Farda is one that comes straight to mind, but there's also others whose names I can't completely remember, but they're all fantastic. And now that I'm thinking about it more as I'm saying this out loud, I probably should have put this on the list and not an honorable mention. With the honorable mentions now out of the way, onto the main series. So number 10, we have Will, Holt, and Horace from The Ranger's Apprentice. You could also put Eric in this category too. He's an absolute blast to spend time with. The Ranger's Apprentice was the first series that got me into reading fantasy, and Will just was so easy to connect with. He was an undersized guy that just had to work hard and go about things differently to achieve at a high level. Myself, I had my growth spurt way later in life than everyone else, so I was always on the shorter side, and having someone like Will that was still being super cool, doing a bunch of things and making mistakes but growing and learning was a fantastic role model in a book. I was thinking the other day that if I ever wanted to write a book myself, I'd want to show that people aren't perfect, they have flaws, but they can always just try their best. And Will was someone that just came to mind when I was thinking of those things. Holt, just a really fun mentor, and Horace, a really good friend. They're brave, they're courageous people that are just trying to do their best for the world, and I really loved them growing up. So then at number 9, we have another series that I read before I really dove into the world of fantasy, a series that I loved so much. And the more I've read other books, the more I've realized and how great a series it is. And that's The Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett, and it characters Arlen Bales and Leisha. Arlen, again, that same sort of farm boy to hero journey, but he really stands out by being someone who just didn't want to hide behind wards. He didn't want to be a coward his whole life. He didn't want to be like his father and be scared into inaction. He was someone that was so brave and so courageous, just really embodied the spirit of being brave and stepping out into the unknown, no matter the risk, and also someone that just really wanted to help people and have people do better. And then as the series goes on, he just becomes an absolute badass, just saving lives, protecting people, changing the world. Then Leisha through this series, super easy to connect to. She was so enjoyable. She steps into every role in life that she has to and does her best at it. And it's very interesting to see the politicking that goes on in her life. And yeah, just seeing someone have to step up into a role of leadership is super interesting and seeing their take on it. And at number 8, we have my favorite characters from the Red Rising series. And these ones are Darrow, Severo, and Victra. But we don't get a crazy amount of time with her, but she is just fantastic all the way throughout. She's deeply passionate and caring about those that she likes, and she'll do anything for them, and you do not want to get in her way. She's a maybe an even more savage version of Orca and is just fantastic. Severo, I didn't understand how big a role he would play. Like in the first book, he does a lot of things, but he's always doing things on the side. Then what he comes to be through the series as his role grows, as he has more responsibilities, how he has to grow as a person. There's so much going on in Severo's life. And then Darrow, of course, he's our main guy. Just absolute badass storyline. So next, we have a little bit of a projection pick. I have Hadrian from Christopher Roccio's Sun Eater series. And this one, I haven't even fully finished book 1. I should finish it today. But this guy is just, you want to cheer for him. And he wants to be a good person, but he just gets in his way so often. And it's very relatable that, we always try to do good ourselves, but we don't always do the right thing. We get things wrong. We make a poor decision. And Hadrian Marlowe is that guy. He wants to do good, but he just makes the poor decisions. And again, guy my age can connect to it a bit easier. And he's super smart, he's super interesting, and I'm so hooked into seeing where his story goes. One of the best series all time for character work, and the reason it's not higher than 6 is I just haven't read it in a long time, is A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Jon Snow is the person we all want to be. Tyrion Lannister is the intelligence and wit we all want to have. Arya's adventurousness and spirit is fantastic. The passionate, loving mothers that would do anything for their kids with Cersei and Catelyn. There's just great characters all around in this book. If you haven't read this already and you love the First Law, what are you doing? This is what got Joe Abercrombie writing. This is what good characters are. This is what great world building is. This is fantastic plot work, though maybe the plot got a bit out of hand. That's why the series never got finished. But you have to check this stuff out. This is a classic for a reason, and the show was so popular because they were able to capture these characters. Coming in at number 5, we have a very recent read for me. We have Moist von Lipwig from the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett, and Moist is the funnest character I've ever read. A former criminal caught and forced into social service, having to bring up the post office, having to get the bank in order, having to set up a railway, and using his criminal thieving skills to help all these things. Just super interesting. It's Discworld, so it's funny, it's a little bit goofy, but it's full of wit, it's full of humor, social commentary, and just so satirical. You're laughing every time Moist is on page. His wit and banter is the best, and he's just my favorite character from the series. Just how funny he is. Terry Pratchett is an absolute wordsmith, and he puts those abilities into Moist, and every time Moist speaks, it's just funny and cluey, and you have a great time. Number 4, we have the First Law trilogy, and I'm talking Sandan Glockter and Giselle Luther, 2 of my favorite POVs of all time. And the only reason they're not high on the list is because I haven't had enough of them yet. I've only read 2 books, and I just need more. Giselle, just a really stuck-up person, born into a pretty high-up family, just has not worked hard a day in his life. Seeing life just hit him in the face and him try to react to that is just fantastic. And you want him to start becoming a better person, and you get hope that he might become a better person. And Joe Abercrombie just slaps him in the face. He's like, nah, he's not good yet. So we always hold out hope that Giselle's going to become an actual human being and be a good, considerate person, but we're not sure yet. Then Sandan Glockter, someone who used to be in Giselle's position, that also had high military fame, who was then caught, tortured, and became a torturer before his story in these books takes place. Super interesting. A tortured person made torturer. Super compelling. The plot lines he follows are the most interesting in the series, and his wit is fantastic. Love these 2 characters so much. Coming in at number 3, we have Kaladin and Syl from the Stormlight Archive. Come on. Kaladin, like, honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. The duty of the strong is to protect the weak. Kaladin just wants to help. He wants to protect. He wants to look after you, and he will put his body on the line to do it. He'll put his life on the line. He'll put his own mental health on the line. This poor dude is so depressed. And at certain times in my life when I was reading this book, I was in tears. And he's trying to work on his flaws. He's doing his best, but sometimes we don't improve all the time. We don't always just get better at things. And he has setbacks over and over and over again. He doesn't just improve in one book. It takes him a long time to really get over his issues, if he even can get over some of these things. And then Syl, just always being there, just constantly just wanting the best for someone, pure innocence. Yeah, two fantastic characters. I'm rereading The Way of Kings now, and I just can't wait to just dive in with more Kaladin chapters. Number 2, we could have the entire cast of the Faithful and the Fallen series. These are my favorite characters in all of fantasy, except for just one person. Corbin and those close to him are absolutely fantastic characters, and I do treasure them very dearly. But the 3 I wanted to highlight today were, number 1, Camlin. This guy just comes to mind first when I think of this series. Just the outdoorsman. He kind of plays like the role that like a ranger would, but he doesn't start that way. He starts off just being a bandit, but then uses his banditing skills for good. His character growth across the series is insane, and he's always cooking up a scheme. And I love people that are always cooking up a scheme, got a plan going on, got a twist coming. There's one action scene that takes place in one of the 4 books. His bow has got away from him. He's fighting someone. They're chasing after him. He's running after his bow. He dives on the ground, does a spin, picks up the bow, and shoots the person right before they come up, which feels like it's just out of an action movie. That always sticks in my mind. It's super unrealistic, but I love that bit so much, and that's why Camlin takes number 1. Macwin, oh my god. I just thought he was a side character in book 1, but what he went and did afterwards will just forever stick in my mind, especially his revenge arcs, just absolutely insane. And then the last one I want to talk about is Veritas, and the way that his loyalty conflicts with what's right and what's wrong is just the most interesting part of the series, and he was one of the most easy characters to connect to in the whole book. And then there was one. And if you've watched my channel, you know who this is already, because I've talked about him endlessly. He's my favorite character from my favorite book, from my favorite series. It's Gabriel de Leon from The Empire of the Vampire. Gabriel is definitely elevated by how the story is told, as in Empire of the Vampire, Gabriel's an older, mature guy. He's been through a lot, and he's now telling his story. So we get Gabe as a old, mature person. We get him as a young, immature person. His whole raising into how he got to where he is now. The thing that stands out the most for me with Gabe is his back and forth with the person he's talking to in present time, and also his back and forth with the characters all throughout the book. The banter is just so funny, so witty, and no matter how dark the story is, you will be laughing throughout. And getting a mature person who's telling us their story and can now see their faults, it just gives such an interesting dynamic. And it also allows you to have the moments where Gabe can be like, oh, and I thought that was the worst it could get. And then, oh no, it got way worse. So just being able to look back on his life and then tell us just the story he likes just elevates him. And his story is super interesting. What he is super interesting. But the reason he stands at number 1 is just J. Kristoff's writing, and the type of story this is just elevates him so much with the wit and the banter. Obviously, he does a lot of cool things, but he's just my favorite character to read. He makes the story so fun. Thank you so much for tuning in to hear me talk about my favorite fantasy characters. Love for you to comment down below your favorite characters in all of fantasy. How should I have ordered this list? What did I get wrong? If you want to check out my book club on Fable, it's down in the comments. It's completely free. We've been reading Empire of Silence this month. It's been an absolute blast, and I'm about to put up a vote for what book we're going to read next, so get in on that. I've also just recently set up a Patreon if you'd want to support my account. There's zero need for you to do this. I just put out updates on my thoughts on the books that I'm currently reading as I go, short little like stories sort of things. So I'm just telling you guys what I'm thinking, completely unfiltered, then you can also select a book for a monthly raffle for me to read. And as it's a very new Patreon, you'd likely be one of the only people doing it, so I would have to read your book. So if you want to check that out, you can, but no pressure at all. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for watching.